Newsflash. The United States of America is in some trouble. That's the bad news, and it is bad news, and it's been building for so long. What's gone on in Washington is basically criminal. It's not as if people haven't seen these things coming. They've just kind of kicked that can down the road. And that truly is bad news. There is good news too, and that is that people are starting to pay attention. People are starting to question and look for additional ways, better ways, workable ways of addressing these issues. So they're beginning to understand that we need a change in philosophy. We need a change in approach. So, let me ask you, what philosophy, what approach do we need to go to? And the answer is the approach and the philosophy of libertarians. That's the message. It's going to work if we do our jobs right. Newsflash. State of California is in some huge problems. We've been listening to various messages about those, but we know them. And that's the bad news. The good news is the same. People in the state of California are starting to pay attention. They are starting to look and see that what we've been doing in Sacramento is basically criminal, just like in the federal government. And they're starting to look for a new change of philosophy and a new change of approach. And they're hungry for it. They're thirsting for it. And what is the approach and what is the philosophy that they are looking for, whether they know it or not? It is the approach and philosophy of the libertarians. But wait a minute. Okay, so the libertarians keep talking about not only do we have the right approach, we have what works. It may not be warm and fuzzy, but it works, folks. And we also say that, you know, there's a basis for our approach and our philosophy in the Constitution. Imagine that. But so many people will look at us and say, you know, I know the Constitution exists, but I really don't look at it. I've never really read it. Where in the Constitution does the approach of the libertarians lie? How about Article 1, Section 6, Section 9, Section 8? How about the 9th Amendment to the Constitution? How about the 10th Amendment? What we stand for, there's a basis for. It's what the Founding Fathers stood for. And I am absolutely convinced that every Founding Father today would be a libertarian. Let's focus on that. Let's push that message home. What we do works. And we can address what Peter Schiff is talking about, and we can address what these other folks are talking about as well. Okay, so how do we do that? We become a political party. We start electing libertarians to office. Okay? How do we do that? I have two ways. Both of them are doable. Both of them are workable. Now, in March, April, May, June of 2012. The first is that we as a national political party nominate a candidate for president that can actually be a part of the presidential debates, can participate in the presidential debates. Gets 15% polling, and that's going to happen, and who knows what could happen after that. We have such a political candidate, I believe, and we should get that candidate and work for him in that effort. Second is that we should research and support an initiative to repeal or seriously cut back marijuana prohibition in California and in the nation. We can do this. Now, honestly, there are probably 4 initiatives that are campaigning, and I support every one. And I hope that the Libertarian Party of California supports each one. I haven't signed all of them yet, but I will if they come up to me. But I am biased. I believe that regulate marijuana like wine is a really, really good initiative. I believe that it will address not only the failures and defects of Prop 19, which, by the way, people were worried and some legitimacy, although it was a tortured reading of Prop 19. They were concerned about the workplace. They were afraid that their employees could go out on a coffee break, smoke marijuana, come back impaired, and they couldn't do anything about it. I didn't read it that way, but we in Regulate Marijuana Like Wine talk about that really directly. If you haven't read it, do. It's there. It's here. In fact, we have a table. Look at the back. Read the whole thing if you want to. Please do. But it says, you know, we're not changing any regulations. We're not changing any laws with regard to using in the workplace, being impaired in the workplace. Same as it was yesterday, it will be tomorrow. Same thing with regard to age restrictions. 21, just like wine. In fact, the answer to most questions that I am asked out in the community, how would you do such and such? What would the result be of such and such? The answer is, how do we do it? Like wine, exactly the same way. That's a good thing. We talk about driving under the influence. No change. Don't change any regulations, any laws with regard to driving under the influence. What it would have been yesterday, it will be tomorrow. So I recommend that we do this. It treats marijuana like wine. It actually puts the whole system on the Alcohol Beverage Control Board. Okay, is that a good thing? Well, it's what's working for wine pretty well. Are you aware? Ask people. Are you aware that marijuana is the largest cash crop today in the state of California? Number 2 is grapes, by the way. So people realize that, and we have a choice. We can have marijuana and other illicit drugs, either with Mexican drug cartels and juvenile gangs and other thugs, or without them. That's our choice. Wouldn't you rather, instead of having the money go from these sales to Mexican drug cartels and other thugs, motorcycle gangs and the rest, wouldn't you rather have to come to help fix our highways, pay our firefighters, and educate our children? That is a winning result. And you don't have to listen to me. Listen to the Attorney General. The Attorney General says, they did us dirt on 2 things. They did us dirt with regard to calling this the legalization of marijuana, which it really is not. And also, they did us dirt with regard to we drew a distinction between the hemp industry and the marijuana industry, and they called there's no age restrictions if you're going to smoke marijuana of a 0.3% THC or less, which misleads people into thinking, oh, you know, my children can smoke mild marijuana. It's useless. You can smoke that tablecloth and get as much as you could out of 0.3% THC marijuana. So they didn't help us with regard to that. Treat hemp like cotton, for heaven's sake. It's an industrial product. We are losing out, folks, to Canada. It's a $1 billion a year business for us to import hemp products from Canada. They're appreciative. We're stupid. We will, passing Regulate Marijuana Like Wine, address that. And we had some issues with regard to the federal government. Yes, last time I looked, there is the Supremacy Clause. Last time I looked, the federal law does trump the state law. And if they're going to do this, they can, but, however, we say in Regulate Marijuana Like Wine, anyone that works with or for the state of California or any city or county government is prohibited from assisting the feds in enforcing federal law if it conflicts with state law. What does that do? Huh? What does that do? I was in the federal government. I was a former federal prosecutor, and first of all, I know the federal government does not like to lose. And secondly, they don't have the horsepower, they don't have the numbers to go through and shut down the medical marijuana dispensaries or pursue these laws. They don't. And anytime you have a medical marijuana dispensary that's being shut down, look at what's going on. About 80% of those folks are local. If you work with or for the state of California, any city or county government, you are prohibited from assisting with regard to asset forfeiture or prosecution or any of the rest of these things. And that will push the federal government back in a way. I am convinced. This is something we can do. And I want the Libertarian Party of the state of California to adopt this as its own. I want it to pass with the help and the sponsorship of the Libertarian Party, and when it passes, which it eventually will, I want everybody to look and see, aha, Thanks, Libertarian Party. You helped us do this, and we now see that it's working. We can do this. We can become a voice and a force for change, positive change, and we can and we must do this. And that will put us on the map. Wait a minute. Look what's happened with regulate marijuana like wine. Let's see how now no children are selling marijuana to each other in their high school campuses, just like, of course, no children today are selling Jim Beam bourbon to each other in their high school campuses. We're regulating and controlling this. Let's look at the fact, as libertarians say, that today the words controlled substances are the biggest oxymoron of our lives. As soon as you prohibit something, you give up all of your ability to control it whatsoever. Controlled substances, indeed. You have no control over quality, quantity, place of sale, licensing, age restrictions. None of that. They're all left to the bad guys. We couldn't do it worse if we tried. Thank you, Libertarian Party, for bringing this change to our state. Hey, it worked for that one. Maybe these other things that libertarians are saying will work too. And that is how we begin to be a force for politics, a force for change, a force for benefit in our great state and our great country. What else can we do? I believe we must elect people to office. These are two ways. Presidential campaign, I think we're off to a good start. Regulate marijuana like wine. If you don't have a copy of our petition, please get them. If you haven't signed, please do. Take them with you. We have a very short window now, folks, that we really need a full court press to get these petitions. They're in the back there. Get them, take them home, get your friends, your family, your other people to sign them, and mail them in no later than March 15 to the address on the back. And we need to get this final push. And if we don't do it this time, everybody that signs it will have some skin in the game. And when we do this again, they will already be converts and we will go forward. But otherwise, as a state party, let us try to find, I don't know what the number would be, 20, 25, 30 really good candidates for some office. It can be city council, it can be the school board, wherever. Get good candidates, and then let's pool our money and our resources to support those good candidates. And I don't care if that fellow is running in El Dorado County or that lady is running in San Bernardino County. Let's find the best ones, let's support them, and get them elected. We can do this. And then what will happen? Hey, I like what she is doing on the city council in San Bernardino, or I like what this guy is doing in Riverside County on the school board or whatever. Hey, let's move this person up to the assembly. Let's get some good results there. Hey, let's find more of these people and elect them to office because libertarians actually have that right message. So this is what we can do. Let's really look at David Nolan. Let's really look at all of these various people, that have gone before us, and take it to this next step and become a viable political party by electing people to office and helping out where this help is needed. Because if we can't do it in this economy and in this situation, we might as well fold our tents and go home. Our people need us. Let's respond to that cry. I believe, genuinely, that the most patriotic thing I can do for the country I love, the most effective thing I can do for the country I love, is to help us repeal drug prohibition. I believe that is the same for you. So I will leave you with two guarantees. Number one, we will change away from this failed and hopeless policy. In fact, I look at people and I mean it. Drug prohibition is the biggest failed policy in the history of the United States of America, second only to slavery, and I'm not at all sure it's only second to slavery. We can change away from this, and we will. And my second guarantee, and then I will sit down, end up early of all things, imagine that, is that 2 years, 3 years at most, after we change away from this failed policy of drug prohibition, everybody in the country will look back and join arms and be aghast and astonished that we could have perpetuated such a failed system for so long. And that will be uniform across the country. and it will have begun here in California with the Libertarian Party. Let's get at it. Thank you again for listening. Let's go get it. Thanks so much.